Bill Gaither turns 90 years old today, and 90 years is a number that carries weight when most of them have been spent doing the thing you were born to do. 70 of those years went into writing songs, gathering gospel music artists, and building a Christian music catalog that no one before him managed to build, and no one since has come close to matching. Today, for the first time, we are going to sit with the one thing he says he would do differently, and what he says is not comfortable, and it is not what most people expect from a man who has given so much. When you hear it, something about the way you see everything he built will shift. William James Gaither came into the world on March 28, 1936, in Alexandria, Indiana, and nothing about that beginning suggested what was coming. Born not into wealth or connections, but into a family where religion ran deep and music ran deeper, he absorbed those two things early, and they never came apart in him. By 22, he was already writing songs that felt different from anything else in gospel music at the time, songs that sounded less like performance and more like one person talking honestly to God. The co-writes with his wife Gloria would go on to shape an entire era of American Christian music, and one of them reached all the way to Elvis Presley. He Touched Me, written by a schoolteacher from a small Indiana town, was recorded by the king of rock and roll himself, and that alone would have secured most careers. But Gaither's story took a harder turn before it took a greater one. The year was 1970, and he and Gloria were walking through a season of real fear, a pregnancy that arrived with uncertainty alongside a stretch of depression that Gaither has described honestly in interviews over the years. Out of that fear, the song Because He Lives was born, and what it offered came not from a place of strength, but from a place of desperate need. Millions of people have sung those words in hospital waiting rooms and at gravesides, and they felt something real in it because the fear behind it was real. What followed over the next 5 decades is the part that fills entire documentaries. Gaither built the Gaither Homecoming series, and what started as a single reunion concert for old friends became something that crossed every boundary gospel music had ever known, gathering voices around him that the genre will never forget. George Beverly Shea, Sandy Patty, Vestal Goodman, Mark Lowry, and David Phelps, among hundreds more. Grammy nominations followed, Dove Awards followed, and in 2026, at 90 years old, another Grammy nomination arrived for Then Came the Morning, a song about resurrection after the darkest night, recorded at an age when most people have long since stopped. The scale of that legacy is what makes what he says next worth paying attention to, because when people ask this songwriter what he would change, he does not reach for business decisions or catalog deals or tours that went the wrong way. What he comes back to, in a candid interview published by Crosswalk in January of 2025 and across multiple Gaither Homecoming recordings over the years, is time. Specifically, the time he gave to the work when the work was not the right answer. Openly and without excuse, he has spoken about seasons when the schedule filled and the schedule won, when the gift crowded out the giver, when the producer and the musician in him took up the space that the husband and the man of faith needed to occupy. The pressure he carried for everyone around him, the artists, the ministry, the music, the message, produced years of personal depletion that he now describes with a plainness that clearly costs him something to say. He chose music over family more times than he should have, chose the stage over the supper table more than he would now, and in the middle of the most productive seasons of his entire career, he did not trust God with the outcome the way he believed God was asking him to. That is the regret, stated plainly, without decoration. And the reason it cuts as deeply as it does is because there is nothing unusual about it, because most people listening have made some version of that same trade, chosen the work over the people they love, chosen output over presence, chosen busyness over the kind of rest that actually restores something. And here's the thing he wants you to hear on his 90th birthday. Slow down sooner. Trust sooner. Rest sooner than he did. What Gaither's music has always understood, though, is that the story does not stop at the regret. The entire current running through every lyric he has written, every concert he has given, every voice he has gathered around a piano at 2 a.m, is that God redeems all things. The dark season that produced Because He Lives did not break him, and those years of striving and depletion did not disqualify him either. All of it became the soil from which his most honest writing about grace and faith would eventually grow, and none of it, he will tell you directly, has been wasted. Then Came the Morning is built around a specific and deliberate idea, and Gaither has lived long enough to understand it from the inside. The song does not center on Good Friday, and it does not center on Easter Sunday. It centers on Saturday, the day between, when the disciples sat in silence believing the story was finished, when hope had been buried and the quiet felt like the final answer. Gaither knows what it is to wait in that silence and wonder if it means something terrible, and what 90 years have taught him, with the kind of certainty that does not come cheaply, is that the morning always comes. Not as a phrase meant to comfort, but as a fact that has proven itself over and over across his entire life. The regret is real, and the resurrection that followed it is real, and those two things together are what the last 70 years of his work have actually been carrying. He would do some things differently, and he says so himself. He would slow down, trust more, choose the table more often. And in the same breath, he will also tell you that God has not wasted a single moment of any of it. Not the dark years, not the depleted years, not the years when he chose wrong. That is the gospel this Christian music songwriter has been carrying since he was 22 years old, and on his 90th birthday, it has never been more true. Bill Gaither turns 90 today, and if his music has ever reached you in a real moment, if you have ever sung Because He Lives somewhere it actually mattered, or heard Then Came the Morning on the worst Saturday of your year, put a heart emoji in the comments right now. Let him know. Subscribe, because as long as Bill Gaither is making music, we will be here covering every moment of it. If you made it to the end of this video, you are not here by accident, and that is not a small thing to say. Most people scroll past. Most people catch 30 seconds of something, decide it does not hold them, and move on to the next thing in their feed. You stayed. You sat with the story of a 90-year-old songwriter from Alexandria, Indiana, who gave 70 years to gospel music and still found the honesty to say he would have done some of it differently. And that means something about who you are and what you are actually looking for. So, before you close this tab or let the next video roll, stay with us for just a moment longer, because what we do on this channel is built for exactly the kind of person who just watched this entire video.